Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. Okay, so since we last talked, Jim Schwartz has reacted to the head coach hiring, or at least the reports have gotten a lot more detailed about what Jim Schwartz's reaction was to this hiring. And I think Jim Schwartz has made one thing abundantly clear. He can't come back. Like, I think we all have to be clear on this, right? He cannot come back now. Even if he calmed down and was open to coming back, you now have to fire Jim Schwartz. I hope we all understand this. After the reaction and the way that he chose to carry himself, reportedly, and it's barely reportedly. I mean, this is pretty much, people have confirmed this. It's not a he said, she said situation. Nobody's debating that how he reportedly handled the situation, where when it was told to him that he didn't get the head coaching job, he immediately cleared out his office and told people he was not going to return, right? Like, he threw what can only be described as a bit of a fit after not getting the job here. Yeah, he can't come back. That is a uncomebackable mistake. And if Jimmy Haslam is watching this video, I need you to understand, he's got to go now. There's no way that Todd Monkin is going to be successful if Jim Schwartz has this attitude about him getting hired. There's just no way. There's absolutely no way about it. And look, I'm shocked by how Jim has chosen to handle this. I was under the impression, my apologies, that Jim was a bit more of a professional, right? That Jim was going to handle, not getting the job like a professional, like everybody else who did not get the job. I didn't think he was going to handle it by legitimately throwing a fit. And I don't know if he's reacting this way because he thought he was Jimmy Haslam's guy, or he thought he was Myles Garrett's guy, which we're going to get to Myles Garrett here in a minute too, because I got to talk about him as well. I don't know what made him feel, and the only words I could use to describe this is straight up, he is reacting as if he was entitled to the Browns head coaching job. And usually what we call somebody when they're having this kind of a reaction towards not getting something that they feel they were entitled to, usually what we call that is a temper tantrum or acting like a spoiled brat. I never in a million years thought that I would have to use that tag to describe Jim Schwartz. But here we are. For whatever reason, and you can make up any reason you want, the reaction is not justified. So I hope we all understand there is no rectifying that. He's got to go. And if he does not go, that's not going to bode well for Todd Monkin, because you can't work with somebody who is going to react like that to the announcement that you got the job. You can't do that. And most importantly, here's the crazy part for me. The Browns don't have to deal with this. That is the craziest part to me. And that is why I think it's insane that the Browns have been going through all of this for Jim Schwartz. And I want to think of reasons for why they've been dealing with that other than the Browns are stupid, right? And I think it's real easy to go with that, but there has to be a real reason why they've centered Jim Schwartz so much. And the only reason I can really think of is Myles Garrett. That this is Myles Garrett's guy. Myles Garrett wanted Jim Schwartz to get this job. I don't know how Myles Garrett thinks that fixes the Browns' problems, given that, he's been complaining about the offense, and Jim Schwartz has a negative track record in offense. But Myles Garrett wanted Jim Schwartz to be the coach. We know this to be true. Hell, he posted a little Popeyes "I'm tired" meme after Jim Schwartz did not get the job. So maybe the fascination isn't centered around Jim Schwartz. Maybe the fascination is centered around Myles Garrett, which would make more sense because organizationally speaking, he carries the most clout out of the three people we talked about that aren't named Jimmy Haslam. Like, Myles Garrett has more clout than Jim Schwartz. And I get it. Myles has had two bad defensive coordinators in his stay here in Cleveland. Greg Williams decided to tell him to use one pass rush move, which was stupid, and openly admitted that he wanted Mitchell Trubisky over him, which is also stupid. Let's just got to call a spade there. Then he had to deal with Joe Woods not giving a damn about the interior defensive line. Jim Schwartz comes in. He's the first competent defensive coordinator that Myles Garrett had, and Myles Garrett has an attachment to that, and I understand that. But now that Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett, it's not going to be hard to find somebody competent to fill this role, which is the second part of this whole thing that I find ridiculous. The Browns don't have to do any of this for Jim Schwartz because unlike on the offensive side of the ball where, hey, look, it's a tough situation. You're going to ask a lot, and you might have to go digging in places that are a bit unusual, right? Which is why I think the Browns head coaching job ultimately came down to a passing game coordinator who never caught plays and only had been in the NFL for 3 seasons, or a 60-year-old career coordinator who's never gotten an opportunity as a head coach. Those are not the usual suspects for head coaching jobs. But if you're the Browns, your job's not the most attractive. You got to go looking between the couch cushions to find some change sometimes, and I understand that. The Browns' defensive coordinator job is much easier to fill because the defense has its quarterback. It has young players that are really, really good. This is a very attractive defense to come coach for. The Browns will have no problem finding a qualified defensive coordinator to take this job. So it's not like you can't afford Jim Schwartz to leave because who's going to fill the role? You can replace Jim Schwartz pretty easily. So whatever reason we're doing this over Jim Schwartz, again, and not Jim Schwartz is not a bad defensive coordinator. He's a good defensive coordinator, but he's not good enough to justify any of this. He's not even the best career defensive coordinator in the NFL. You can argue he's not top 5. Like, it's not Spags. He is doing a lot, and he can't come back. And the most important thing I need the Browns to remember is the Browns don't have to entertain any of this. They never had to. Maybe if it was the case that Myles was really lobbying for this, really politicking for this, and maybe that's the pressure that Jimmy felt that made him so hell-bent on keeping Jim Schwartz, maybe that's the most plausible explanation I could think of. But they don't have to do any of this. And if Jim Schwartz is going to act like this, he can't come back. Like, it's already written. It's over. Once he cleared out his locker, once he told people he wasn't going to return, once he threw his fit, that's it. Like, if the Browns bring him back to be the defensive coordinator, you're setting Todd Monkin up for failure because you're immediately undermining him. And look, I thought that there was a chance that you could keep Jim Schwartz without it being undermining because I thought Jim Schwartz was going to be more of a professional. My apologies. Every assumption I made about Jim Schwartz was that he was going to be more of a professional than he demonstrated himself to be. And you can empathize, you can be empathetic to why he crashed out, but the crash out is unacceptable. Like a crash out is barely acceptable for a fucking toddler. Like if your toddler crashes out because they get upset and they bonk somebody in the head, you give your toddler discipline in response to that. If your third grader does something because they got mad and they crashed out, you discipline them. A fifth grader, a seventh grader, a 12th grader, a college student. The list goes on and on. Crashing out is not acceptable at any age, let alone the big age of whatever the fuck Jim Schwartz is. This is ridiculous. There's no accepting of this. You can be empathetic to him. You can feel sorry for him that he didn't get the job, but you can't bring that man back. So I just wanted to get that out first before we get to any other topic in this video. He cannot come back. It is not an option. And you got to move on. So just release him from his contract. Because trying to make this only goes one of two ways. One, either you embarrass yourself by trying to force Jim Schwartz to stay here and he just shows his ass more. Or two, you force Jim Schwartz to stay here successfully and he undermines Todd Monkin the entire time out of spite. Can't have it. Can't do it. Right. And also another reason you can't have Jim Schwartz here is now he becomes the person to go to. He becomes the face of the rebellion, right? If there's something that Todd Monkin needs to do that's going to be unpopular in the locker room, but it needs to be done, then who becomes the most popular guy in the locker room? Jim Schwartz, right? Like you cannot keep the guy who just tried to attempt a coup as vice president. You're asking for disaster. And that's what Jim Schwartz did. He attempted a coup. Unbelievable. Unprofessional. And just, he can go. He's got to go at that point. All respect to Jim Schwartz as a defensive mind and the work that he's put in Cleveland, but you got to go at this point. Congratulations. You didn't get the job. You wanted to go. He's going to be successful in forcing his way out. I expected Jim Schwartz to be more professional than this. And unfortunately, Jim Schwartz has let me down. So there's that. We're going to talk about more, but first let me thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. All right, so the Browns are going to have to look for a defensive coordinator. And again, if they don't look for a defensive coordinator, if they're still trying to make this Jim Schwartz thing work, you know, I feel no hope about this coaching hire, if that's what they're still trying to do. And I would love to feel more hope about it because I do think there's a lot of legitimately interesting things about Todd Monkin as a offensive mind. Like, I feel bad for Todd because so much of this garbage has been going on around Todd that we haven't been able to talk about him as a offensive mind and how he fits this job. Because I think when we do have those conversations, more people are okay with Todd Monkin. Like I did my video where I brought up some of Todd's accomplishments when he got hired. And a lot of people commented, oh, thank you for talking me off the ledge. And it's like, I'm not trying to talk you off the ledge. I'm just telling you what his resume is. And that is painting a compelling enough picture. And that's to say, like, when you actually explain the Todd Monkin hire to people and you demonstrate the evidence that there is to what he's good at and why it makes sense for the Browns, it does make sense. And unfortunately, we've not been able to get to that because we're talking about whether they actually wanted Shieldhouse or not. Or are they going to retain Jim Schwartz? And then Jim Schwartz throws a temper tantrum. And then we're talking about the Jim Schwartz temper tantrum, right? It's unfortunate that we're not able to focus on Todd Monkin. Somebody brought this up to me, right? They were talking about coaches who did not get very many opportunities. And the name's Mike Zimmer, who didn't get a head coaching opportunity until he was 55 and was successful, came up. And Bruce Arians is another one that came up, right? Let's talk about why it is that Todd Monkin is 60 years old and is just now getting a head coaching opportunity, right? Because I think that's an important question to answer when you're talking about Todd, because that's the first concern people have. And the assumption that people make is if Todd's been bouncing around the league and he's 50, 60 years old and he hasn't gotten the opportunity, then he must be bad. And like legitimately, like I know this term gets thrown around kind of falsely or maliciously at times, but like legitimately there's some ageism in play with Todd Monkin here, right? Some legitimate ageism. Ask yourself this: would you feel this way about Todd Monkin if he were 40 years old or 45? You know, but him being 60, it just sticks with people so much more. I think there's a legitimate explanation for why he's 60 years old and he's getting his first head coach job. And that's because Todd Monkin spent the bulk of his career in college football. Like you go look at that Todd Monkin Wikipedia, he was a college football guy for the longest time. He was comfortable in college football, got all the way up to the point of being a head coach at Southern Miss, won coach of the year for Conference USA. I believe his first year there. Second year wasn't as successful. For whatever reason, he was let go. And then he made the jump to the NFL. Well, was he let go of it from Southern Miss or did he leave Southern Miss? I have to double check that. Yeah, so it looks like he left Southern Miss to take a job in the NFL as an offensive coordinator. So he takes the job as an offensive coordinator in 2016. Now, Todd Monkin, as many people have pointed out, is 59 years old. 2016 was 10 years ago, which means he broke into the league when he was 49. And once he got experience enough that where he would be a justifiable head coach, like let's look at what his NFL experience was. In 2016, he was the offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers. And then for the Browns, he wasn't getting a head coach job after that. I think this is just the point of his career in the NFL where it makes sense to give him a head coach job. It just so happens because he started late in the NFL and he started when he was 50 that he's 60 when he gets this start. But if he were 10 years younger, started in the NFL in 2016 and then got the job today, nobody would really be tripping. So I think that's the reason he's 60 years old with his first head coaching opportunities, because he's only been in the league since 2016. And this is the opportunity that he got. And if you wonder why wasn't he given opportunities before, well, he was the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. Jameis had some moments of brilliance and some lesser moments throughout his career, but he maintained a pretty good reputation, turned it into a job in Cleveland. That went and was a disaster for all involved. We were there for it. Took the job in Georgia. Was really good there at Georgia for 2 years. Turned that into the offensive coordinator job in Baltimore. After that first year, he did get head coaching interest. Didn't get a job. After his second year, got head coaching interest. And then didn't get a job. And then after this year, got some head coaching interest, did land a job. I think that's pretty normal for a coach. It's just he started his cycle late. So again, I don't think like this is a situation where he's been in the league for 30 years and didn't get a job because people think something's up with him. I think this is a situation where, he just started late and this is his opportunity. So that kind of explains that. The more I think about it, the more okay I am with the Todd Monkin hire. Hopefully he ends up being good. We'll see what happens. But the more okay I am with it. I still gotta feel a lot better I still will feel a lot better when I have a better understanding of what led up to that decision. Was this process based or was this Jimmy based? We'll find out. But yeah, I feel good about that. So in summary of this video, we answered why Todd Monkin is 60 and getting his first job. The answer to me is it's because he he really made his most recent NFL run back in 2016. He's only really been in the league for 10 years. So it kind of makes sense that he's just now getting his opportunity, right? And if it's not even 10 years, it's 8 seasons because he spent 2 of those seasons at Georgia. You look at 8 seasons in the NFL, you look at all the other guys that we looked at, that makes sense for when you get your first head coaching opportunities, about 8-10 years into your NFL experience. So it's just he started late. Now, why did he start late? It seems like he was a college guy. He was in that ecosystem, and that's where he was getting jobs. And that's where he stayed for a while. So, I mean, that happens. So that kind of explains that. To summarize the first point of this video, can't bring Jim Schwartz back after how he acted. It's not redeemable. It's not fixable. It's just over. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.